Yo, yo, yo. What is good, good people? Yes, it's your boy back at it again. Don't Listen Podcast. It's funny when you say things, people be like, you making it racial. You make it this, you make it that. And then when you come back with receipts and say, I say that because of this, what can you say, right? Because by no means in the last podcast, if the people be really listening, I gave you context. I said police in general treat everybody like this, right? Wasn't just speaking for black folk, but I was speaking for black folk. Okay? So if you had a problem with what I said, you just don't have to watch it. Don't take yourself through no, trials and tribulations. You don't have to. But then don't come to the messenger and say, I say things without merit, because facts are what the facts are. If you look at our small 13% of what this population is, we are disproportionately more affected by police violence than any other group or ethnicity. That is a fact. You could say more white people were killed by police. They are a way greater population than we are. But if you look at the interactions with police, it don't match up. If you look at how many people that's in prison, it don't match up. So save your virtue signaling and your whatever you feel, save it for somebody else. Because when you come in minds and say something to me about it, then I'm going to come with some facts. If you come in with some cornball stuff because you feel some type of way because I made you feel some type of way, that ain't my problem. That's yours, because there's an easy way you can stop it. Don't watch. What I do ain't for everybody. Okay? That's just something I wanted to get out the way before we get started. And in the last video, I also said, there's some biases within the department itself, within that policing system itself. I said there are some biases. Oh, looky here. Guess what? Your boy came with some receipts. Your boy came with some receipts. I try to go out my way to make what I say racial. Because I think this is a problem for all of us as a whole, as Americans. But there are a few discrepancies. And yes, I have found one. There is a 6th officer involved in this Tyre Nichols investigation. There is a 6th officer involved. And the media, the news, the media was real quick to run to and show us 5 black men. You know, it was real easy for them, fast for them to go up there and just say, yeah, these 5 guys. But there was a 6th guy, a 6th man that has something to do with this, was involved in the initial traffic stop of Tyre Nichols. Who was that, might I ask? Well, let's see. Oh, looky here. Let's take a look and see who was this man. Okay. Okay, let's see who it is, good people. Let's see who it is. Oh, look at here. Look at this guy. Oh, who is this? You would think it was only 5 black guys, right? Oh, looky here. Looky here. Who is this guy? Let's find out who he is. 6th Memphis police officer fired in beating death of Tyre Nichols. 6th Memphis Police Department officer was fired on Friday for his role in the brutal beating and death of Tyre Nichols, the 29-year-old black man who died in January, 3 days after a traffic stop. Okay. The officer's name is Preston Hemphill, was placed on leave at the start of the department's investigation. MPD announced his termination on Friday, nearly a month after Nichols was beaten. Hemphill has not been charged with a crime. Ooh, looky here. Calls for Hemphill's dismissal grew after Memphis released over an hour of body camera and surveillance footage of officers beating, kicking, pepper spraying, and using a taser on Nichols. According to attorney Lee Gerald, Hemphill's body camera was released showing officers' initial encounter with Nichols, in which at least 3 officers approached his car at a traffic light, yelling expletives while forcing him out of the car and onto the ground. If you don't know what expletives are, they are curse words. Not very good words, unbecoming of a police officer, okay? The department said Hemphill violated policies including personal conduct, truthfulness, compliance with taser regulations, compliance with uniform regulations, and policy governing inventory and recovered property. The investigation into Nichols' death remains ongoing, the police said on Friday, and multiple officers are under investigation. Hemphill, who is white, was hired in March 2018. Okay, so this is the guy that the news media decided to leave out of their coverage and was very quick to show the 5 black men alone. Nothing in the police conference said any mention of this man's name. We saw that in the last video. And he was the guy that was holding the taser in the video. Them white hands don't look like black hands. So why wasn't this guy mentioned in the beginning? See, now this is the problem I got. When you people who come on here and say your goofiness and you think I ain't gonna come back with some facts. This is the goofy. Okay? When I say there are differences in how Black officers are treated than white officers. Here's proof for you right here. Excuse me. Let's see what this is. Let's see what they talking about here. Let's see what they talking about here.
Yeah, that's right, Chance. You know, Ben Crump called the police, the Memphis Police Department's response here, the blueprint for cities and local governments when they have a controversial police shooting on their hands. But local officials say they aren't done.
The fallout from Tyre Nichols' death has been swift.
We continue to pursue every lead. Justice demands it.
5 Memphis police officers fired and charged with second-degree murder. 2 EMTs and a lieutenant terminated from the Memphis Fire Department, and several others under investigation.
We are looking at everybody who had any kind of involvement in this incident. It's going to take some time as we do that investigation, but I assure you the investigation is ongoing.
As Tyre Nichols sat leaned up against a car, bruised and bloody, there were more than a dozen people on the scene. Some are calling for those other officials to face discipline and even charges.
I think that a lot of probing questions need to be asked about even what led up to the circumstances that allowed for this to happen.
Walter Katz has made a career reforming and overseeing police departments, co-negotiating the consent decree for the Chicago PD, and working as a police auditor in San Jose, California.
The other first responders on the scene not only had a policy obligation to render aid, but at the very core, they had a moral obligation, and they failed.
In addition to the 5 officers who have been fired and criminally charged, Memphis Police put 2 more officers on administrative leave.
I hope they stomp his ass.
Officer Preston Hemphill is one of those officers. The video showing Nichols pulled from his car and pepper sprayed comes from Hemphill's body camera. Hemphill's attorney says he was never at the second scene where officers kicked and punched Nichols while he was handcuffed. For the officers and EMTs who were at the second scene but didn't participate in the beating, Katz says criminal charges are not off the table. But Katz does expect to see more terminations as the investigations continue.
I'd honestly be surprised if anyone who was on scene who failed to intervene or failed to render aid will be staying with their department for a long time.
While inaction may not warrant criminal charges in all circumstances, the Memphis Police Manual specifically calls for a duty to intervene by officers. It also requires police to provide medical aid to injured parties as quickly as possible following any law enforcement action.
Now, Chance, with those 2 provisions that I mentioned, the duty to intervene and the duty to render aid inside the Memphis Police Department's handbook, there's at least a reason to examine the behavior of the officers that were at the scene that day. But we'll have to see just how far these local officials go.
Jamal, a few questions here.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there's so many people and dynamics and policies at play. The Nichols family and their lawyers, they seem to decisively have public sentiment on their side, the sympathies of America right now. Do they risk looking punitive at all if the message becomes, we want the white officer to be punished too, regardless of the role he played?
Oh my God. Look at your news media providing cover. Oh, look at him. Oh, look at him. He ain't had nothing to do with it. The beating, he tasered him. So what we talking about here? You see, it's a difference here. Oh my God, look at the difference.
Yeah. Well, you know, obviously it's hard to say. I mean, kind of getting an idea of public sentiment is so difficult in situations like this. But I think a few things are important to mention. One, I know that just from kind of public chatter, there's been a lot of talk about how swiftly this investigation has moved and the fact that there were 5 black officers on the receiving end of these charges. And so I'm not at all surprised to hear Ben Crump and the Nichols family call for this officer to be punished as well. As far as for what that does to sentiment across the country in regards to what happened here, it's hard to say, but I think if you watch that video that was released that shows the vantage point of Hemphill's body camera, he does escalate that situation. And he does, as I showed in the piece, have words for Tyre Nichols that are not pleasant. And so it's hard to say, obviously, what comes of moving forward with charges or significant discipline in Hemphill's case. But I do think there are people who want to see that happen, Shane.
If I'm understanding you correctly, Jamal, because you're so plugged into the discourse that's happening right now, that in their minds, there is no distinction between the 5 officers who were punching and kicking, and pepper spraying and batoning him, and the man who was on scene initially and did say, I hope they stomp his, that there's no delineation.
Okay. You hope they stomp him out. You hope you stomp him out. That in itself implicates him to be with that, because what he said he would like to happen happened. And he did participate in tasering the man running away from him, which made him not a threat. If they're running away, you're not a threat, right? So what we talking about? Listen to this guy find the ways to provide cover. He's trying to make a distinction of saying he ain't had nothing to do with the beating. What he said out his mouth, that's what happened to the man. What are we talking about? You see how is different rules. And like I said, I'm coming with receipts. And for the flat-foot sucker who came into my message, here you go. What more you need to see? There you go. Shut your mouth.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say there's no delineation. I think there's a clear distinction between that first scene and that second scene. I think my general point.
Here's where you're wrong. When Hemphill says, I hope they stomp him out, and then that's what happens, there's no distinction. When he pulled out his taser and what he was saying to him while the man was on the ground, where they should have been able to end it right there, they are trained to end that right there. They let the man get up and run away. So at the end of the day, he is a part of it. You see the difference, good people? Do you see the difference?
Point is that especially for this family that lost someone, I think for those folks, it's not at all surprising to me that they call for all the officers involved to face significant discipline. And whether that be charges, whether that be disciplinary action within the department, I'm not at all surprised to hear Ben Crump, who is representing that family, call for anyone who played a role in Tyre Nichols' death, from Hempill all the way to those officers that were at the second scene, to face some sort of significant punishment.
Mm-hmm. And we should acknowledge the fire department has had firings. The sheriff's department had some deputies who were under questioning. So right now we've been focusing, zeroing in on Memphis PD, rightfully so, but we're also watching to see any changes maybe coming to those other departments who were there on scene that night as well. And we're also keeping our eyes as Ben Crump and the family and potential self-proclaimed victims of the Scorpion Unit could be talking tonight. Jamal Andrus, I know you have your ear to the ground and talking to people involved. It's really helpful. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's
at least one of those journalists, at least he had a little rebuttal for what he was saying. Just a little bit. Because I know he got to keep his job, so he can't say too much. But did you see him trying to provide cover for him? Am I still making these things up? You know, they say video never lie. People tell on themselves through their actions and their words coming out of their mouth because it's being recorded. What can you say? There's your receipt, buddy. There's your receipt. And the other receipt you could see is this guy was never implicated in the beginning. Before they rushed to judgment and said 5. Here's the 6th. And then there's more firings from other people. Pictures should have been shown in the beginning, in the initial press conference. That way, people don't just rush to judgment and just say, these 5 black men. Oh, no. It ain't just that. It's more. And I'm sure we'll all find out, because there's some rumors going around that one of the black officers was dating Nichols's girlfriend. And, you know, I don't know about none of that. I'm not going too far down the rabbit hole. What is plain to see, I'm bringing to y'all. And if I get some news on that, I'll report on that too. Mm-hmm. It ain't nothing separate, right? Ain't nothing different. Miss me with that. Don't Listen podcast, your boy TP. Yeah, I'm still bringing the receipts. I'm in the building. Stop playing with me. Stop playing, okay? Tell you. Don't tell me everything's the same for everybody. It ain't. Peace to all of you all on your journey. I'm out of here.